Right, we're going to look at skinning. So I'm going to add the skin modifier in below Turbo Smooth. Always got to be, or always better to skin low poly, much easier. Okay, skin modifier there. I'm just going to add in the bones, and if I choose pelvis there and make sure select children is on, just do select there, it picks all the bones in the hierarchy. I'm just going to take out the jawbone because I'm not actually going to use that as part of my skinning. We'll come on to that when we do facial rigging. Just make sure you don't have any eyes or anything else left in there as well. So we go on to edit some envelopes, and I'm going to show you a problem which you have with CATRigged, which I'm absolutely convinced is a bug. If you select any part of the envelope and you move it with the gizmo, it moves in completely the wrong direction. Okay, and that makes it pretty much unmanageable. So I'm not actually going to be using the envelopes at all in this skinning tutorial. I'm going to skin it by vertex or by edge loop at a time. So just to get them out of the way, I go down to my display rollout and do show no envelopes, and that way we won't get any of the those big sausage shapes in the way while we're doing our skinning. Right, so to do the skinning, as I'm sure you're aware, it's a good idea to have some animation on your character. So if I show you what I've got at the moment, I've got 5 layers in there at the moment which are going to be animations for the skinning. I'll just take you through them. So first of all is legs. Zoom in on there and you can see what we're going to be doing with the legs. So I've got a different pose every 10 frames, so that's a pose where the leg is up. That's going to test out the forward motion of the hip and the bending of the knee. Quite a tricky one around the hip there, lots of overlapping, but let's see how it goes. Backward bend of the hip, sideways bend of the hip. Okay, then back to the down position, and I've got some foot poses here. So if I just zoom in on that, that's a tiptoe pose with the toe down and the foot up, a back of the heel pose, and then the next one is a sideways and the other sideways heel movement, and that's full set of motion for the leg. I will also show you the other animations so you can get setting your own animations up before you actually get onto the skinning. So unhide that one. Is spine skin poses. If I play the animation through now, you'll see I've got a forwards pose, and this is just achieved by rotating the rib cage bone, backwards pose, sideways pose, a body twist. You can't twist fully 90 degrees without the pelvis, and we've already looked at the pelvis skinning with the legs. Then we're on to head positions. So if I just zoom in on that, we've got head down, head back, obviously needs a bit of work, head sideways, other side, and then looking to the side. The next one we'll look at is arm skin poses. So arm skin pose is going to go like so, down to the side, the natural position, and then a shrug up as well, because the natural position is with the shoulder bone down a little bit. You can't really see that there. Notice how the shoulder bone goes from horizontal to down, and then a shrug up. And then the next pose is with the arm forward. And again, notice if I look at it from the top view, the shoulder bone is pointing forwards a bit to make it a bit more natural. And then up. If I look at it from the front, you can see that the shoulder bone has gone up to make that look a little bit more natural. And then elbow bend there. And then I've got wrist bend down and wrist bend up, and side to side wrist movements, and that's all we need for the arm. The hand skin poses, skinning fingers takes a while. You may have got the impression I don't really like doing fingers. It's true. So spread the fingers, bend the fingers up, curl the fingers down, and then thumb spread, thumb curl, and back to home. So those are all controlled just with the digit manager down here in the motion panel. Once you've got the hand bone selected, just choosing the appropriate fingers and changing these values accordingly. You have to make sure that the keyframes get baked onto the fingers though, because it doesn't always guarantee to happen. Right, so that's the hand poses, and then final set are twist poses to test out the twist links on each limb. So I've got first of all lifting the leg up to an upright position, making sure that the FK blend here has gone across, or the IK-FK blend has gone across to 1 to make sure the leg is fully FK, and you can see that slider going up in those 5 frames. So as I make that move, I've just basically animated the slider as well. And then you can rotate the calf bone like so to 2 positions. That twists the pelvis, and then go back to normal position and animate this back to IK so that we can manipulate the IK target there. And we've got a sideways twist there and a sideways the other way to test out the twisting of the calf. And then up here we've got the same on the arm, so it comes into a bent position at 90 degrees first, and then rotate that up, and that twists the upper arm. Rotate it down to test the twisting that way, and then straighten out again, and then it's rotating the hand that way and this way to make sure that the forearm twists correctly. So there's a full set of poses that you can use there for skinning purposes. What I'm going to do is take you through an approach to doing this using just vertices and edge loops and managing the weights manually, rather than going through every single part of the body and skinning it independently. So we're going to look at the legs, go back to here and hide all those other layers. I'm just double clicking on the layer to hide it, or you can tick the ignore box, it does the same thing. We're going to look at the leg skin poses. I've hidden all the bones because we don't actually need to see them now. So just go into here and do some envelope editing. Go into envelope edit mode. Right at the top of the panel here, make sure vertices is ticked, and then we can get on and do the leg. So first thing I'm going to do is just zoom in on the knee, and the knee is a relationship between this bone here and this bone here. So really it's the whole thigh bone, but of course because we're at this end, it's the last segment of the thigh bone and the first segment of the calf bone. And I'm going to bring up the weight tool, which is the little spanner button here, and this is the one I tend to use most. So first of all, vertices ticked. Make sure vertices is ticked up there so you can actually select vertices. Select 2 vertices around a loop like that and click the loop button. And I'm going to weight those fully onto this calf bone by just pressing 1, and that will give them a weighting value of 1. Okay. I'm going to do the same with the next loop down, so that they're fully weighted onto that, and we'll sort out the weighting in detail of the rest of the leg later when we look at the twist poses. But for now I'm just going to ring around the top of the boot and set that to 1 as well, so you can see that all of those are weighted heavily onto that bone. Now the knee here, I'll loop that round. Initially I'm going to put that on 1 as well, so that's fully weighted onto this bone, but then I select this envelope here and do 0.5, and what it will do is, because they both need to add up to 1, it will modify the other weighting down to 0.5 as well, make it 50-50. By using 1 to start off with, you're guaranteeing to take full control of all those verts, otherwise you might get slight variations. And around here I'm going to loop that and make that 1, and this one up here initially I'm going to make 1 as well. That will get fixed a bit more when we do the twist links. So now that's a good initial starting point usually, so let's lift the leg up and see what the knee deformation is like. Well, it's fairly tidy, but the shape isn't that good. So what's a good thing to do from here? Well, you can take this loop around here, and you don't necessarily need the side ones, although it doesn't have too bad an effect. And we come back onto the calf bone, which is the one that's 0 at the moment. We'll just click the little plus button here to pull those around, and that will help the shape of the knee. Okay, what you don't want to do really is get these more or lower than about 70% weighted, otherwise it will start to crush the shape of the thigh as the thigh deforms. Going to do the same for the bottom loop and weight them gradually back towards the thigh bone just by clicking the plus button there to modify that shape of that knee and make it a bit better. Okay, now you'll never get it perfect, partly because you've got no way of changing the width for one, and partly because it's just not how skin actually works. But what you can do is get it pretty close, and then in a subsequent VTM we're going to be looking at skin morph and how you can actually remodel the shape of this when the knee gets into the bent position. That means you can reshape this to make it narrower around the top so you can see the kneecap, you can squash the boot in, you can squash the thigh up, and so on. I'm going to have a look at the ankle next, just because it tends to be quite easy. And what you need is for your foot bone, basically everything that's part of the shoe needs to be fully weighted onto the foot bone. So I'm just going to go back to the foot here. What I'm going to do is just go to the front view and select everything on the foot. Okay, so now I've got the whole foot, and let's just weight all of that onto the foot bone to start off with. Okay, so now that's going to keep the foot rigid, particularly the heel. It's very important the heel stays rigid to the foot. So now I can just take the ones at the toe end here, and let's go forward to our tiptoe pose, which is on frame 40 there. And I'm going to weight them initially 100% onto 1, just so we can see how they work. And obviously it works here, so it's just this loop here and the next loop on the foot, which are slightly overcooked. But I'm not going to do it on the sole because that will distort it too much. Slightly back towards the foot bone, and these ones here loop, and again I'm not going to include those ones, just the ones at the front of that loop. I'm going to weight back towards the toe bone to try and make that distortion a little bit more believable. Might need to weight that center one a little bit more than the others. Okay, so now I've got a foot that folds up. Heel, well, I mean everything else should work pretty well. There we go. Then we come to the thigh. And the thigh, you won't be surprised to know, is a relationship between the upper thigh bone and the pelvis, although quite often the lower spine bone has quite an influence too. You can actually use them separately, so the pelvis can help you to maintain the shape of the pelvis, and the spine bone here can help you to spread the shape around a bit. So I'll start off with the loop technique as well though. So this loop here, there is going to be 1 onto the thigh, and then as I go up each loop I make that 1, and press the loop button, and this one. So they're all going to have some influence from the thigh. Let's get rid of one side. So I'm going to start them off with 100% influence on the thigh, even though they're not going to be fully influenced by the thigh for the whole thing. This loop here, I'm going to put 100% onto the pelvis, and then as we go back down through these loops, we're just going to ease them off a bit. So this one is probably going to be around about our 50-50 one, so let's start with that in mind. 50% there. And then if I just take those and loop them round like so, I can do a blend to blend them in towards each bone. And when I use the blend, just alternate the bones you're selecting on, because it does blend towards a particular bone. And let's see what that looks like now. Right, far too rigid in the middle. Let's just look at each loop in turn. Let's look at this middle loop first, I think, again. Right, so I'm going to weight that back a little bit more towards the pelvis bone to kind of bring it round to more of a kind of 45-degree angle there and make it look a little bit more the right kind of shape. And then this loop here, just try doing some more blending on there to fit that in. That's given me a much better shape around the bum. Around the front, it's kind of cutting in very early, so around the front of this, probably from there round, I'm going to weight that much more heavily towards the pelvis so it doesn't distort so much. Okay, that's not bad. Now this loop here, I need to weight more towards the thigh bone to try and pull that shape back round and stop the thigh getting so squashed. You can see that's spread the stretch of the bum around there a little bit more, and it's maintained the shape of the thigh a bit better. Probably a little bit too sturdy around the front. I am going to ease that off just a little bit along these three front ones here. Weight them back onto the pelvis a little bit more. And this one in particular, because that's quite a pointy one. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. Yeah. And then also the front of the next loop as well, because it's quite rigid looking at the moment. So plus, just slightly more towards the pelvis. Now that is too extreme, and that can only be fixed with skin morph, but what you can see is that the shape that's produced is curved, and the edge loops generally are pretty good. That one probably needs a bit more weighting, like so. So I'm quite happy with that, even though it still looks a bit odd, and the bum does collapse in a little bit. See what it looks like on the backwards pose. Actually surprisingly good. Not often you get a bum that holds its shape that well. Normally the bum will turn inside out a little bit, so I'm quite pleased with that. And the sideways position there, yeah, a little bit overcooked in the middle there. So it's these ones really. I'll weight them a bit more towards the thigh to lift them out a bit. And this one slightly more towards the pelvis, just to soften it down a bit. And this one as well. Check the other poses still work. That's still pretty good. That's pretty good. And that's passable. That one now, I'm just going to weight a little bit more towards the thigh. And a little bit more, because there's one tucked in underneath there. And just this one, tiny bit, that one, tiny bit. Okay, so again, I mean, that's a very unnatural looking crease, but it's clean enough to be remodeled when we do a skin morph later on. Now the vertices up the middle, are always a bit of a problem because they need to be influenced by both thigh bones. So just select those, okay, and start off with them fully weighted onto one thigh bone, and then click the other thigh bone and 50-50 weight them across there. So now they're half and half, and then it's just a case of going back into the distorted position and finding a position where they work by adding in weighting from the pelvis bone. And as you add in the weighting, this 50-50 ratio isn't going to change. All that's going to happen is it's going to be 0.4, 0.4 or something like that. So you can see now that that's pretty awful. So it's pretty obvious that the one at the top of the pelvis here needs to be much more strongly influenced by the pelvis. So I'll just put that straight in at 0.9. I'm going to guess and just put in, say, 0.75 and see how it moves. Might even just make that a little bit stronger. Now I'm going to go into high speed mode. Right, I think we're done now. That's about as good as I'm going to get the leg, so I will leave you to experiment with skinning over the rest of the model, and after a short pause I will show you how to mirror your skinning across from one side to the other. So, mirroring the skinning is done with mirror mode down here. And we click mirror mode on, and you can see a mirror plane appears in your viewport. You need to make sure, first of all, that the mirror plane is going in the correct direction. And then, using the mirror offset value here, you can position that mirror until such point as it's slap bang in the middle. And when it is in the middle like so, you should see, if I zoom out you can probably see them a bit better, that all the vertices have turned from blue to green depending on which side they're on. Okay, you know that it's correct because they've turned to that value. If some of them haven't turned correct and it's in the middle, you can turn them the mirror threshold up until they do find something to mirror across to. And I'm a bit of a loss as to why my leg bones haven't mirrored across, but seeing as we're not too worried, we're only worried about the vertex weightings at the moment, then that shouldn't matter too much. And that one's gone asymmetrical as well. That's pretty clever considering we didn't play with any of the envelope settings. Once you've got your mirror plane in the correct position, use these buttons here to mirror across. So what we're going to do is, the blue side is the side we've been working on, and that is the correct side. So the first one here is paste green to blue bones, then paste blue to green bones. Now these first two buttons are for pasting envelope sizes and shapes across from one side to the other. Well, we haven't been working with envelopes, so I'm going to ignore those. The next one here is paste green to blue verts and paste blue to green verts. Well, my blue verts are correct, so I want to paste those values across to the green side. So click that button, and when it's done you'll see that the vertices all get highlighted, so you know it's complete. Turn off mirror mode, and you have a fully skinned mirrored CATRigged